Trace, do we have something to add?
The appointment,
Hold on.
Green Committee appointment, it's on the top of your packet.
All right, okay. Good morning. I'd like to call to order the Board of Selectmen meeting of November 6th, 2017. It is now 8:31. First order of business is Pledge of Allegiance. I ask Selectman Powell Tracy to lead us, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Carl. This is not an agenda item, but I think it's appropriate if we have a moment of silence for the 26 victims that were killed down in South Texas. So, please. Thank you all. On behalf of the Board of Selectmen, I will send a letter of condolences to the mayor down there, like I did to the mayor of Las Vegas, and we did get a very nice response from her. So I will share that with the rest of the board. So, thank you. I hope that we don't have to do this every month, and our successors don't have to do it either. So, all right, we have to add an item to the agenda for, in addition to the appointments and resignations. And Gary, you said that was 7.8? Okay. Gary made a motion of 7.8. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, public forum, that's item 2. Now, this is limited to any item on the agenda. Anybody wishing to address the board? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Approval of the minutes, which is item 3, 3.1. It's just the regular minutes of meeting of October 16th. Do I have a motion, please? So moved. Second. Motion is made and seconded. Any additions or corrections? Okay, seeing none. Call for a vote. All those in favor as the minutes as presented.
All right.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. All right. Item 4, we have to remove from the table the motion that was made to table the September finance report. Do I have a motion to remove from the table?
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we have our finance director to present the September report. Good morning, Mary Jane.
Good morning.
It's actually October, isn't it?
No.
It's
September
September.
presented in
Right.
October.
Right.
Yeah, right.
I'm just looking at the,
Right.
Yeah, it
the
says that on
agenda.
there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You'll
okay.
see me in 2 weeks again with October.
Okay.
It
So
should say September on there, you're right.
it's from the October meeting.
Gotcha,
So
gotcha.
all different dates.
It's a little early,
Yeah,
you know?
I haven't adjusted the daylight savings time yet.
Well, you got here on time.
Okay, we're ready.
I'm ready, I'm ready.
How would you like to start?
To start with revenues. Of course, this was as the end of September. We were 25% through the year at that time. We had brought in almost 52% of our budget at that time in comparison to about 51% last year. The significant difference there is the tax collection. We had $8 million of taxes that were brought in prior to July 1 this year, as opposed to about 300,000 last year. So we had a significant amount of taxes brought in very early in the year, which kind of makes up the majority of this difference. But anything at 50% at this point is exactly where we would want to be. So otherwise, there's not too much more to say on revenues, unless you have any questions. Similar story on the expenditures. We, at the end of September, we were about 28.8% obligated, and compared to 27.4% from last year. only a couple areas that we were a little higher this year. At this point, one I had mentioned before in IT, our munis contracts are now due annually at one time at the beginning of the year instead of quarterly, so that brings our percentage up much higher. And the only other item of note was the registrar of voters. They were 25% as compared to 15 last year, and that was really because of the primary. So in a couple places we had a little higher, just made that slight difference. Otherwise, again, most of our budgets are right where we expect them to be.
Just going back to revenue for a moment. Sorry for not asking this before, but on the golf course, the difference this year versus last year is last year when it was an enterprising fund, they did receive a contribution from the general fund for $30,000, and this year it doesn't. So we okay there?
Correct. If you look at that, I do have a little asterisk. I did remove the transfer from the general fund from last year's figures so that we were comparing apples to apples.
Okay, good. Okay. Any questions on the either revenue or expense? Okay. Do we want to hit the insurance?
Sure. September was, I guess you'd call it a good month for us. Our expenses were down under $1 million, which is even under our budget and way down below what we had the prior year. Our revenues are tracking a little bit higher than we anticipated, so at the moment we're projecting a surplus of about $131,000, which would bring our net projected fund balance up to about $2.5 million.
Okay. So we're into November. You're going to give us October in
2 weeks.
2 weeks? And I assume there are nothing we should be concerned about at this point?
No.
Okay, good. Any questions? Thank you. Item 5, Town Engineer Jim Portley. 5.1, consider and take possible action to award RFP 4-1617 Engineering Design Services for the replacement of the State Bridge 04863, Sawmill River Road, West River, and authorize the first selectman to sign the engineering service agreement with Hawks Engineering. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning. This is a project we've been talking about for years. Sawmill Road, we went through the application process. Finally have the authorization from the state to award a contract for design services. But first, before that, I guess we have the agreement we have to sign with the state. We got two letters the same day. One was to authorizing us to proceed with the signing the contract with Hacks. We went through the regular process of interviewing and what they call a quality-based selection, and they were chosen. And then we went through a process where the scope of work was defined with the state so that everybody was on the same page. The process is now complete, so we've got a letter from the state DOT to allow us to sign a contract with Hacks for the services, and then a letter authorizing us, what they call the project authorization letter, so that when it's signed and approved by the board, we can proceed with the design. So it's a long process, but it's come about. We need to replace this bridge. It was built about 1900, had a deck replaced about 1960. The deck is deteriorated. The abutments are really in pretty bad shape. And so this is the time to take advantage of the funding of this bridge. It's 80%, basically it's a federal local bridge. So it's 80% federal, 20% state, 20% town. We've set aside the money in our LoSIP program for our 20% contribution to the design. And as we go forward, it is anticipated with the construction that over 2 years we would have enough from our contributions from LoSIP to pay our portion of the actual construction. So I think it's all kind of coming together for us on this, and I recommend, first of all, the Board of Selectmen approve the agreement, and then authorize the first selectman to sign the project authorization letter.
Point of clarification, LoSiP is actually state money
LoSiP
that is awarded to the town.
to the town.
So
It's-
that's what we're using. We're not using any money from the general fund
Correct.
for
Yeah,
our 20%.
right. We're using state's money to take care of our obligation.
So, okay, just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Jim, who selected hacks? Is that a
We had a
state?
a selection committee of town. George was on, Joe was on the committee, but he had a meeting at Hartford that day on the state budget, but with George Kroll, Tom Filion, Mark Dami, and myself interviewed a series of consulting firms. They were rated the top of the three or four that we interviewed. So it's been a while.
Now, when they came in, did they give numbers at that, or were you
No, they
checking
went-
qualifications?
It's more qualifications, experience, knowledge of the procedures that you follow. The numbers are not submitted at that stage. It's just quality based. They don't. It's not a bid. That it's like looking for a heart surgeon. You don't want to pick the cheapest guy. You want to get together, do the best job. Unless, not knowing you, Gary, maybe you would.
You never know. My kids would pick the cheapest.
There you go. $1.380, you got it. So that's how it goes.
Mike would not for it.
Second, general question. How are all of our bridges? Do they get reviewed regularly?
Every 2 years. Well, all structures over 20 feet get inspected by the state.
Okay.
So, and the only one that really isn't in bad shape is the bridge at the end of that goes into
The East River.
yeah.
Yeah.
We turned it into a pedestrian bridge, so, and even the deck is a little bit questioned. But there's no traffic, there's no need for it. We'll deal with it when we deal with it. The important ones are that take traffic every day are all in pretty decent shape, in my estimation. We replaced the Vineyard Point Road Bridge 2 years ago. We've replaced almost every bridge, including the bridge up at North Guilford on Great Hill Road last year. We've systematically gone through and replaced bridges as we needed to. As I say, there's a bridge at Clabber Hill which I've shied away from. We went in ourselves with Public Works and repointed the abutments. And we kind of
years ago, right?
How many?
20 years ago?
No, that was done about 10 years ago. But I think structurally it's in good shape, and it's a beautiful bridge. Knowing it's the only way to get to the east side of town, I've been shying away from doing much over there, but it's in good structural shape in my estimation. If you were to go through the state process, they would tell you to replace the guide rails there with, more substantial guide. But we never had a problem with it. And it looks, as I said, that looks so good. It fits right in there. Maybe at some point in the future we could address some of the cosmetic issues that I consider, and some people consider safety, but I don't think they're that much of a problem. But otherwise, I think our bridges are in good shape.
So for the people viewing this tape, probably about a week or so, whenever it gets on GCTV, is that the program from the state is every 2 years.
Every 2 years,
It's reviewed.
yes.
Okay.
Every bridge gets inspected.
So that they can be assured that every time they drive over it, it's not going to collapse. No, I'm serious about this.
No.
And the funding for this is 80% federal
Correct.
and 20% town, which the town funding is coming from LoSiP money, which LoSiP money is really state money that's awarded to the town.
Right.
So in essence, it's not coming out of the general fund.
That's
It's
correct.
coming out of state fund.
That's correct.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
The only other comment I
Terry?
make, having read this, is that it provides provisions for going over budget, but no provision for going under budget. It doesn't deal with what happens
Well,
if you don't spend all the
It's a
money.
state project.
Well, that's a design. Basically, it's a
No.
design. The budget, it does have provisions for, and that's why it took so long to define this contract. There's a lot of issues when you go through that you may not see on the face of it when you go into the design. And one of the issues I think we talked about was, it's gonna go through historical preservation. Just north of that bridge is the old Witch Hazel mill that Carl used to work at when he was a kid. Every old timer I know in town worked there one time or another. But it was a beautiful mill, and they used to make witch hazel. That I don't know what brand it was, but it was, they crushed the witch hazel.
Yeah, I don't know the name of the brand, but it
Yeah.
was between here and Essex, I guess, those
Yeah.
are the only two.
Yeah, and I don't know if it would, just like Long Hill, I didn't expect that we'd have to go through an archaeological exercise to go through the design. Don't know. I don't know if it was considered that, but you have to talk about those things and see if you want to just figure putting that into the design fee. And we said, no, let's not do at this point. It doesn't fit under any category. So, but there are a bunch of little things that if they are brought up that we would have to address in the design. But the basic design cost is for the bridge as we see it, and it's like a lump sum.
Are they gonna realign it?
Yes, that's both horizontally and vertically, because as old Ed Bartlett told me, he used to design the bridges so that your bridges were high and you left the approaches low. So when you had floods, they washed out the approaches, but they left the bridge intact, and then you went back later on and filled the approaches back in with gravel, and you never had to replace the bridge. So that's one of those bridges, and because of that, the road floods north and impacts the house just north, which was the old mill that was, I was looking up that nice tour of it last week when I met with the owners, and they asked about this bridge, and we want to protect that structure for the future.
Joel Helander asked me to give you a test. Do you know the name of the Clapper Hill Bridge?
No.
I didn't know it had a name.
Howell Lots Bridge, because
Okay.
in the moonlit nights, the wolves would go along the
Right.
East River and howl at the moon.
You should know that.
I should know that because I read his book. It's in his book.
Okay, do we have any more, before we get off, any more questions regarding the agreement with Hawks? If not, I need a motion then. Yeah?
Can we do these together? I would move that we award the RFP and sign the appropriate, and direct the first selectman or authorize the first selectman to sign the appropriate letters and contracts related to the replacement of the Sawmill West River Bridge.
Yeah, we could do 5-1 and 5-2 together on C5. Motion made, second. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye. Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, 5.3, consider and take possible action to purchase road salt under the state contract bid. Jim?
Yeah, state bid this year came in $7 cheaper than it did last year. Came in at $62.50 a ton compared to $69.93 last year. It's a no-brainer, as far as I'm concerned. I recommend the Board of Selectmen award the bid to DRVN Enterprises on the state contract number 17 PSX 0156.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Jim, I want to congratulate you and your department. I don't know the project's not completely finished, but Long Hill Road is just fantastic. We had in Guilford over 5.5 inches of rain, and that road did not flood. And people have questions about why we did that road. I want to remind the public that Long Hill Road is a major evacuation road. It also leads to one of our prime emergency shelters, which is the Guilford High School. And I've had many residents come up to me and say, wow, what a difference. And that was funded 80% by the federal government, 10 by the state of Connecticut, and 10 by the town of Guilford, which again was through lots of partially, which wasn't from the general fund, but it was a project that had to be done, because I've been in this town a little over 30 years, and every time we had torrential rains, or even less than torrential rains, that road would get flooded because of the West River, and that's a major evacuation road. So that was a tremendous job, and good work.
I'd also like to comment about the windstorm last week. I had a number of citizens mention to me about how Public Works pitched in and took. I know there were a lot of wires down. It took a lot longer than some people would have liked, but I know I was out early that morning, and they were all out there ready, cutting and moving. Nice job.
Yeah, it was.
The guys did a great job.
Yeah, that's. I'm glad you brought that up. That was the second comment. It was Public Works and our Assistant Chief of Operations of the Fire Department, Michael Shove, and your supervisor, Tom Fillion. Those guys worked hand in hand, and I directed Assistant Chief Shove not to let Eversource leave, and he kept them there. I think he took their licenses away or something. But we had over 30% of the town without power at the height of the storm. And it took almost a week, 5 days, to get every last house down. Now, sometimes when you have those storms, it's the ones and twos that are hardest to get on, because you have to involve Frontier, because they own the poles, and they have to get the poles here and set the poles, and that was the hardest part. But Assistant Chief Shove and Highway Supervisor Fillion and their crews were tremendous. And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have gotten the power back as quickly as we did. Now, I know 5 days is a lot for some people. If you're one of the last ones to get the power back on, it's a long time. I realize that. But in my 8 years here, we've had some bad storms, believe me. I got baptized very quickly. You know, being first selectman is not all about dollars and cents. It's about infrastructure and getting the power back and all that sort of thing. So your guys will get commendations from me, and board will be
That would be
copied
greatly
on.
appreciated. They worked really
But
hard.
the public doesn't realize how much it takes and what these guys do. You know, they think it's all Eversource. No, it's because of these guys that Eversource gets the job done. So thank you again.
Thank you. I'd just like to point out, we had all the roads cleared we could by 3 o'clock on Monday.
Yeah, you did.
The only ones we were delayed in clearing were the ones where there were power lines, active power lines down. But we cleared every other road. Not that it was all cleaned up, but they were cleared so you could get access. And I understand, Eversource was they were overwhelmed, and it's a lot bigger storm than anybody anticipated.
Yeah, and by the way, we had at least 30 roads
Yes.
that were blocked because of trees and entangled wires that we couldn't touch
Right.
until Eversource de-energized the wires. Now, Guilford was probably the hardest hit town within this area, no doubt about it. You can look at the history of this.
But we have a big town.
We do. But it wasn't the hardest hit town in the state. So the concentration was the eastern part of the state, and that's why Eversource was kind of slow getting here, because they had much more outages in Groton and that side of the state. But by the time they got here, it was mid-afternoon on Monday. Then our guys didn't let them go. They worked 24 hours through those 7 days.
It was an
But-
ordeal, but
But our guys were on them. They followed them. They stayed with them. And when the wires were de-energized, we don't have bucket trucks, so we couldn't get up there. But when we got to the part when the roads where the trees were on the ground, we cut those trees. We opened those roads.
But
I will
even
say-
little things like keeping the stump dump open 5 days a week, I mean, citizens appreciate that. I mean, it really does make a difference. And that's what I noticed, people talking to me. I was in North Guilford Saturday night, and, more than a few people mentioned, wow, nice job.
Well, Thank you, and I think it's, we're serving our neighbors. This is, and I always say, that's a primary responsibility, and what is very gratifying is that people did call and thank us. I mean, it's little things, it's not it's not tremendous, but just a thank you, or an email thank you.
Emptying
It's
the
greatly
basin of the
appreciated.
leaves. I mean, between the rain and the leaves, the basins were getting clogged up, and you guys just do it.
It's basically doing your jobs and in some cases going beyond that. So again, thank you again.
And doing it courteously.
Yeah.
I think, and I've said this before, but your guys stop and, they'll explain to a resident what they're doing and why they're doing it, and that makes a difference.
Thank you all.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank
it.
Don't let it go to your head.
It doesn't apply to you, Jim. We don't need, this doesn't apply to you.
Of course not. I
You got salt and compliments, that's it.
It's your guys, not you.
Thank you.
Don't push it. Item 6, Facilities Engineer, Manager Steve Nightoff. 6.1, consider and take possible action to award bid 3-1718 boiler and HVAC upgrades at the Guilford Town Hall South. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning. How is everybody? We did have a bid opening October 31st, and the apparent low bidder is Encon for $45,000. They already do our preventative maintenance here for Town of Guilford, formerly known as Commercial Air Services. So we do know them. The engineer knows them. He has worked with them before, and we both recommend them for the amount of $45,000.
Okay. They were low bidder by at least $11,000.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And so you're recommending them?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
I move we award the bid as presented.
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Steve. When are they going to start?
ASAP.
I just hope you appreciate the fact that we kept the weather warm. So
I do appreciate that. I do appreciate that.
Well, you know he's going to be on that project because his
That's
office
my
is
office.
in that
That's right,
building, you know?
absolutely.
Okay.
Not a dummy.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Okay, appointments and resignations. Just point of information before we go on to appointments and resignations. By charter, this is the last meeting that this board can make appointments. So after this, be advised that we can make no more appointments because the election day is tomorrow, and the next appointments to be made would be by the new Board of Selectmen. We can't, stock the boards, let's put it that way, by charter. Okay, that being said, 7.1, act on a recommendation to move Rob Federici from an alternate to a regular member on the Public Works Commission to fill a vacancy for a term to expire May 31st, 2020. Do I have a motion, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Act on a recommendation to appoint Richard Wallace as an alternate to the Public Works Commission to fill a vacancy for a term to expire May 31st, 2018. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Act on a recommendation to reappoint Anita Cottardi to the Board of Fire Commissioners for a term to expire October 16th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Act on a recommendation to reappoint Steve Copps to the Hazard Mitigation Committee for a term to expire September 30th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made second. All in favor?
Aye.
Act on a recommendation to reappoint Barbara Hemming to the Board of Fire Commissioners for a term to expire October 16th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
7.7, act on a reappointment for Mark Wasserman to the Economic Development Commission for a term to expire November 30th, 2021.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I have one here, this is 7.8. Let's see who we have. Eric Lawton to the, what's he looking for here?
Guilford Green.
Guilford Green Committee. Or what's the term here? I don't have a term here.
I have the, for that,
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
There a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Item 8, request for the use of town properties.
I would move that we approve the use, the 3 uses of town property as listed in the agenda.
Do I have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Correspondence. I think you all received the emails, I guess, late last night. I know I got mine. I had one from Mr. McKenzie regarding the Sawmill River Bridge, and I'm asking Jim to respond back to him. And
I didn't get it. What
no,
was-
he didn't have your email address. Okay, so I'll have it forwarded to you. Okay. And then I did count them. I didn't have a chance to count them. I got them this morning. A number of emails regarding Nut Plains Road pathway. Okay. I didn't have time to go through them yet. I just got them this morning. Okay. Anybody else want to comment on that? Correspondence? No. Okay. Old business. The old business that I would like to bring up is regarding the Nut Plains Road project. We have one more meeting after this one, and then we hand everything over to the newly elected Board of Selectmen. So obviously, we're not going to be acting on the Nut Plains Road. But what I would like to present to this board, and it's up to the other 4 members of this board what they want to do. In view of the public informational meeting we had and a bunch of suggestions, I would recommend that if the new Board of Selectmen will want to pursue the project, and that's up to them, is that they form a stakeholders committee and made up of residents along the route and residents who are interested in such a pathway. And so we get everybody's view, and professionals. That's the first thing. The second thing, not the engineering, but the transportation plan that Jim keeps quoting, Jim Portley. I think it's run its course. I think we need a new one. It's probably about 15, 16 years old. I don't remember the date. 15, Gary?
Yeah.
Thank you. I think it's time we have a new one, but that's not for me to say. That's for the new board and the chief executive to think about. So I'd make 2 recommendations that maybe this board wants to pass a resolution on. Is number 1, that the new board consider, I'm not going to tell them what to do. I had enough people telling me what to do in 8 years. So that if they want to go ahead with the project, that they certainly consider, I think maybe is the proper word, a stakeholders committee. And number 2, that they also consider looking at revising or doing a new transportation plan, considering that the town demographics are changing and its needs are changing. And I'll just throw that out for everybody.
Well, Joe, you beat me to it, because I was
Okay.
going to
Oh, I'm
suggest
sorry.
something similar.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Although I might suggest that that might be a combined effort, because I've said many times that we ought to look at the entire town, and so maybe the stakeholders would be not just Nut Plains, but other areas which have expressed interest or either have a need or have a perceived need. And I know there are some professionals that are volunteers that are residents of the town that
Right.
understand this, and the transportation plan is dated, so I don't know if we need a formal recommendation, or we want to just express it at this meeting if everybody's in agreement, or, maybe over the next 2 weeks, put a formal recommendation in place to vote on at the next meeting.
I would think, I would prefer a formal recommendation, and they can do what they want with it, and if you'd like to draft something for
I'd
next
be
meeting.
happy to work with you.
Okay.
We'll get it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay. And
It's
they-
non-binding, but we
No,
can
they-
recommend it.
they can look
And
at
we
it.
can't appoint anybody, as you said.
That's right, we can, and
So,
they could say, well,
No, I think,
thanks, guys, but no thanks, or say, well, maybe we should look at it.
yeah, no, I think a town-wide view as well as just a Nut Plains view would be appropriate.
I mean, and anything, excuse me.
No, that's okay.
I mean, anything that's 15 years old is old enough. It's time to redo it.
No, I was going to say, I agree. I would keep them separate, Gary, only because, but to work in conjunction, because the Transportation Committee may take a longer period of time than what's going on with Nut Plains. And I think that we should have done that with the Greenway Trail as well. Maybe that's something they can consider as well in the bigger scheme of things. But the success we had with the Deer Management Committee and others that we put together, I think similarly. And I have to say, I was on and chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission when we enacted the Transportation Committee to do the plan. So it absolutely needs to be revisited. And I know it's been bantered about through planning and zoning to do something. So I think us putting it out there, I think its time has come.
I mean, we've been here, all of us, for 8 years, some a little bit longer on the board. I know you and I have been on the board longer than 8 years. And Carl certainly has been around longer than, 8 years. So, we do have some experience. Hopefully, most of it's good. Some we'd like to forget about. But most of the people running for election tomorrow will be brand new, and maybe we have some sort of words. I won't say wisdom, but some experience that we can pass on, and that would be, to me, would be maybe something that they would want to hear from. They might just say thanks, but no thanks, but at least we can give some sort of advice. Okay.
Taking note of yours, I mean, maybe the Nut Plains group is a subset.
Yeah.
I mean,
Maybe a
they
subset.
ought to be involved
Yeah.
in the general planning, but, if there's a specific short-term need to be developed with the Nut Plains group, I'm not opposed to.
Only because the plan could take better
Yeah.
part of a year.
Yeah. no,
Yeah, and the thing,
I think that's appropriate.
I have to agree with Cindy on that. I think
If it's done properly.
I think because there's a time constraint on the
And that-
funding.
Understood.
And either we do it or we don't, so that's it.
Then that shouldn't drop away. They should still be part of the bigger
Yeah.
Absolutely.
townwide planning
Nut
process.
Plains should be part of a bigger plan.
Right, right.
Okay. Anybody else want to say anything? So we'll work on that for, what's our last meeting, November 16th?
20th.
Yeah, okay.
20th, isn't it?
20th, excuse me.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. All right, anybody else on old business? New business? Okay. Public forum, limited to 3 minutes on any item. Anybody? Ma'am? Please state your name and address, please.
Helen Higgins, 652 Nut Plains Road. I've been here before.
Okay.
I want to thank you, all of you, for your recommendation just now. I think that it's a terrific recommendation. However, I wouldn't be me if I didn't come here at your penultimate meeting and say, why not vote no to the Nut Plains pathway now? Given if you haven't been up Nut Plains Road recently, I advise you to go up there. It is amazing the number of people who live on Nut Plains in Upper State who are in major opposition to this pathway, which is not a pathway, it's a sidewalk, so it's kind of a weird thing. And I would love to have a no. And it would be, you'd go out in a blaze of glory.
Depends on whose perspective it is, but okay.
Well, I know. But from the perspective of the residents along that road. So that's what I came.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Herb Burstein. I live at 98 Lakeside Drive, and I too would like to thank you for agreeing to frame the resolution. And as you frame it, I hope you can consider several things. First of all, as you know, this project has had, would be an understatement to suggest it has had a tortured history. You're probably tired of it, and certainly the people who live there are tired of it, and others who are interested in it are tired of it. During the past 4 years, we've called the 6-foot wide sidewalk a path, a multi-user trail, a pathway, and now a sidewalk again. You told us originally, I believe in 2013, project we built with town funds, you have a bond authorization to that effect. Since then, as you know, we understand that the sidewalk itself will be built with a mix of state bond funds, LoTSIP. It will include federal aid funds, transportation alternatives, and it will include the matching town funds. So things have clearly changed, and an outsider can only surmise they've changed in the last year or so. So it has been a moving target for an outsider to follow. You know that not a single property owner south of Little Meadow Road wants a sidewalk. You have a several-year-old resolution to that effect. You now know, as a result of September 25th and the signs Helen's spoken to, that almost all property owners north of Little Meadow Road don't want a sidewalk, period. You previously told us that by calling a 6-foot wide sidewalk a trail or a path, you could, if you pardon the expression, get around the town charter mains revision. I've lived in Guilford 45 years. That's not the Guilford I know. We don't get around things. We face things. On September 26th, we heard at a public meeting that federal aid provisions required the town to maintain the portion of Nut Plains Road, the Nut Plains Road sidewalk that would be maintained, required that the town maintain that portion of the sidewalk, which is the bulk of the sidewalk. We now know better, and you should too. They don't. It's that simple. The town makes a choice, and that choice can include the application of charter provisions as applied to the rest of the town. On September 26th, we saw a single line on a map that was a concept. Courtesy wasn't shown to those who attended the meeting to show us how a sidewalk might be built, what the standard cross-section of, pardon me, the road and the sidewalk would look like, and how people would be impacted. We know that the state asked you to hold that hearing to avoid the situation that occurred on Route 1, but as an individual, I'd suggest that meeting didn't go 1 inch toward moving you away from the same Route 1 situation that you had. You know, you've recognized that after tomorrow, new selectmen will determine what, if anything, is built. Yet on October 13th, the first selectman wrote to CONDOT telling them that the town wants to proceed with design of the road. Design to CONDOT, and design in lay terms means design the thing. Yet we seem to be in a little bit of a gray area here. With all that as a background, asking you to frame a resolution that makes the intent clear not to proceed with real design at this point would seem very little to ask, and certainly comforting to the people who live on that Plains Road. So once again, I as an individual, thank you for your resolution, your intent to effect a resolution, but I certainly hope you consider the last 4 years and you consider what design means against the framework of the October 13th letter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to address the board? Seeing none, thank you. Move on to item 13, consider an act on a recommendation from the Guilford Free Library Association Board of Directors on a new library director effective December 18, 2017. An executive session will be required. And item 14, discuss and take possible action on a land purchase. An executive session will be required. So I am going to ask to go into executive session, and I'm going to invite the Human Resources Director.
Is here from the library board.
Okay, and is there anybody else we have to? And for item 14, I'm going to invite Kevin McGee and Mr. Keith Bishop. And Sandy, you're welcome to stay for item 13 if you want.
Oh, I would love to. I thought I couldn't.
Yeah, I'm inviting you, so.
I
Okay.
accept your invitation.
Okay.
Thank you very
And
much.
Pam, you can stay for item 14, okay? Did I make, and the finance director can stay for item 13, if she wishes. Okay?
Or 14.
And 14 if you like, okay? Right. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Mike will be coming back for a vote. Okay. All right, we need a motion to come out of executive session, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, item 13?
I'll move we approve the new library director as requested to
Okay.
start December 18th, 2017.
All right, I think we can mention his name at this point. Robert McCool. Motion is made. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Congratulations, Robert. Item 14, discuss and take possible action on a land purchase. I think report out that we have no action to report at this time. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Seeing that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Thank you all. Our next and final meeting, unless we have a special meeting, will be November 20th, 8:30 in this room.
We do have